podcast, we have not one, not two, but three special guests. Pamela Cowan is a neuroscience based performance strategist who helps business leaders architect resilient, scalable businesses by integrating brain science, AI, and innovation strategy. Michele Savaunah Zirkle is a transformational voice and co author dedicated to meaningful storytelling that moves hearts and elevates purpose driven leadership. And Heidi Rome is a speaker, coach, relationship nurturer, and author of You Just Have to Love Me. Inspired by her journey with her younger son, Ethan, Heidi's core message, love, don't fix, champions a profound mindset shift from trying to fix our autistic kids of any age to truly accepting and loving them. So together, we're all here to learn a little bit more about these amazing ladies and a book that they've written together. So welcome to the Harmony Principle podcast, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and ready to get into this conversation. Awesome. So let's see. I think everybody is muted, but feel free to come off mic and say hello to the audience. Make sure your mics are working good.
Thank you, Kay, for having us.
So happy to
I
be
am not
here.
hearing anything. Maybe it is just me. Give me 1 second. I got a little technical difficulty. Okay, one more try. Let's see if I can hear you now.
Hi, Kay.
Hello.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. I had a little snafu over here. So together, these lovely ladies, they bring insight, depth, and lived experience to conversations about resilience, growth, and the moments that shape who we become. They are authors of the anthology Moments That Moved Us. It's a collection of true stories centered on synchronicity and divine alignment. So welcome to the show. Let's start at the beginning so the audience can actually get to know who you ladies are, especially if this is the first time meeting you. So we're going to start with Michele. Would you like to tell us a bit about what it is that you help people do right now and what usually gets in their way first?
Okay. If you want to know a little bit about me, as far as what I've done, most of my life has been teaching in high school. And as a result of a paranormal experience, I got into writing. So I totally changed trajectory on what I'm doing for a living. I'm now life coaching and specializing in relationships. So I help people to get the relationships back on track or realize that they need to let go of them. And especially communication, how to communicate with others, and specifically in personal relationships, intimate relationships, more than any other place. So it's very fulfilling to help with that.
Nice, that's beautiful. And since you're dealing with relationships, where do you usually start with people that come to you with a relationship issue?
Well, they of course come with a problem. It's just a human nature. I think things get to a place where we finally say, okay, I can't do this alone. I need some help. Or you're just so frustrated you don't know where to turn. And someone mentions, have you tried life coaching or have you heard of this? And somehow they find their way to you if they're supposed to. And so things typically are already bad in a relationship before people come to me. Um, and I probably don't see that changing too much because we don't often realize when things first start bad in a relationship that it's going to continue that way. We are optimistic creatures. We like to think, okay, this is just a one-off, he's not really that bad, or she's not really, you know, that she's not a horrible person, she didn't mean it. I typically do work with women though. I do have some male clients as well, but it's the majority are women.
Awesome. And Pamela, just to get a little bit about you in here, neuroscience based performance strategist is a mouthful. What's the simplest way to explain what you actually do? Who do you help and what problem you're solving for them?
Well, actually, I'm in the process of actually trademarking um, more in the way of a neurosystems architect or a neurosystems standards or and so I know that I 15 years ago I heard about how we will create jobs that don't even exist yet. And I really feel like I'm on the cusp of that in that um more and more what we're realizing is that as at least I'm hoping people are realizing that as we are entering in to the age of AI, there's a whole other intelligence that we're pioneering and that is how our own brain works. And when we understand how our own brain works, we are just as powerful as AI. And so what I do is I help business leaders. Basically, the mission, I am the founder of the Build Resilience International Institute, and our mission is to bring the brain into business life and learning. And so we work with currently business leaders mostly, but we're also working with youth as well as also frontiering with the disabled and seniors.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, definitely the things that are happening with AI are shaping where our world is going, and we have no idea what the
That's
job
right.
market of the future really looks like. Awesome. So, yeah, I'd like to kick the same question on over to you, Heidi. Can you tell us more about what you do and how you help people in the world?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's perfect to follow these two amazing women because I can certainly give context that it is all about relationship and the brain and the current tools available to us and the power of consciousness and awareness to do better in the world, whatever that looks like, and deal with what's in front of us. My own journey is that I focus on in the book is rooted in my experience with my younger son, Ethan, who has profound autism. He's a non-speaker. His nervous system is very dysregulated. And at the same time, through emerging communication techniques, he is able to type all the thoughts and feelings and awareness within him that has been locked in. And the understanding that appearance is not reality, that what we see on the surface is in no way an indication of all the depth and magnificence and potential within. So that has been my journey. And now I speak about that awareness that our job with other human beings is not to fix them. Um, we don't know what's best. We don't know what's going on for them. All of us, though, we each have our own inner guidance system, and we were all gifted the connection with all there is and an inner wisdom that when we tap into that gift, that is the guide forward. And we each have that. And when we each stay in our own lane, that empowers us to have healthier relationships because we're focused on what we can control ourselves and not try to fix and change other people.
Awesome, awesome. That is such a key thing. I think that a lot of people get wrapped up in trying to make something better by quote unquote fixing someone else and
Right.
being able to realize that you just have to let that go and just experience people the way they are. They are their own full, embodied, amazing selves. So I love
Exactly.
that you're able to get to that point and realize that. And it looks like we've lost Michelle already. Hopefully she can join us again. Um, so, Pamela, I would like to ask you another question as far as what you do in the world. When you were talking about AI, where does AI actually like help a leader build like harmony and goodness in their work and their business, and where does it quietly make things kind of worse or where they can use it wrong? Oh, I think you're muted, dear.
think I am. So I would say that AI is to really do the things that are mundane, repetitive, um, the things that really uh put us into a state of, like, trigger that automaticity. Automaticity is when what your brain does automatically. If I were to tell you that um like the last time you drove, Kay, did you think about it?
Probably not.
No. And when I was talking to some young women about this a little while ago, one of them was like, "You mean to tell me you don't think about driving?" She thought that was so scary. But once we do something often enough, it becomes automatic. And it is a part of our subconscious that works actually in 6 degrees of time, not three. And so when we bring AI into the equation, I believe, is to help to free us up to really be able to solve the problems that we haven't had time to solve because we're so busy with, well, I have to get this off and do that off and take care of this and then, you know, but yet at the same time there's all these other demands and that are also there that there just isn't time for. I recently met with a welder who now he has a robot that actually looks after those repetitive, not that welding isn't important, but you know, those repetitive welds that are, you know, so that he can actually be able to look after those more important welds. And also, how about if we actually had him at the boardroom table? How about if we actually had his input on the decisions that really matter because he's the one that's actually there with that lived experience instead of having people around the table making the decision that have no experience or very little experience because they've never done it. Now, on the other half of your question with regard to um, where AI can get us into trouble is, you know, we're starting to see examples where even just this morning, I thought that I'd be able to submit you a very clean summary of one of the chapters. And what did it give you? A fill in
A
the blank,
template. Yeah.
right? Just a template. And so I can see it to where, you know, us becoming reliant on it could be a challenge. Not only that, but also not realizing that is it really communicating what we eh, how we would communicate it. And, you know, I'm noticing that we are really wanting more in the way of community. We're not wanting to be in our own little silos anymore. And um and I think that that's because that's part of our makeup, right down to our cellular level. Every single um culture is about community.
Yes. Very much so. We thrive together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so working with AI has its place, and I believe that as we learn more about how our brain works, that we are just as powerful and limitless as AI. And I'm not
Yes.
quoting myself, I'm actually quoting Dr. Letty Ramsey, a second generation neuroscientist that I've worked with.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, I think that as we're going into this world of AI, a lot of people are kind of forgetting how powerful and how dynamic we are as humans and kind of just pushing things over to let the AI do it, let the AI
That's
do
right.
it, and forgetting about our own zone of genius that really needs to show up in a lot of the things that we do. So I think that's really important that you brought that to the forefront as well. One more question I'd like to ask would be, what are the problems that you usually see you're solving for people that they don't even realize they have yet? Like they come to you and they think, oh, I have this problem. But you're like, actually, you have this problem.
Well, that's the whole premise of, and I didn't even realize it when I started creating what we're just about to launch, which is the Innovation Playground Nexus, which is our own private community for innovation. And really and truly, one of the problems that it will solve that I didn't really, when we started mapping it out and planning it, I started realizing that what it's going to help us to do is to be its own innovation lab that we will have where um you'll have the ability to have it to where you can actually identify the hidden biases that are within your team, within your relationships, even within yourself, because that's one of the tools that we're building within the Nexus is um and an example is that I had someone who was explaining to me about how um the company that he was working for here, basically responsible for doing sales for a an international company, but yet the owner of the company, who is his boss, is basically telling him, you can't change anything about the way that we do our marketing. Well, marketing feeds your sales. And if your marketing is outdated, because we know that um consumer like customer clients have become much more savvy when it comes to marketing because they're being marketed to all the time.
Hmm.
And so so but the thing is, well, his daughter built it. She built the website, she put together the whole thing and so she did it right. Nothing needs to change. Well, the way that we marketed 3 to 5 years ago doesn't work now. It's not as effective. And so what the Nexus I'm hoping is going to accomplish is the ability for us to even get out of our own way to realize what are the hidden biases that we've created within ourselves that are actually creating those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, that's really important. We
Mm,
we go in through this world with these preconceived notions and ideas and concepts that we cling to like they are absolute truth.
yes.
And that brings me back to Michelle. I'd love to ask you, Michelle, what's a grounded way to work with our intuition without like turning every coincidence into a reason to do something? Where's the line? Where do we find, okay, yeah, this is really speaking to me and leading me in a direction and just kind of trying to point everything out as a sign to do whatever it is we want to do? Does that make sense? Yeah. You're muted still.
I'm sorry about that. I had lost service a little bit ago. I don't know if you all noticed. Maybe you did.
Yeah, we lost you for a
Yeah,
minute.
sorry
Glad you're
about that.
back.
Unstable network. Yes, it absolutely does make sense because every bird that hits the window is not your message. Um, Although, of course, there's the old wives' tale about the bird hitting the window and it means that someone in the house is going to die. Um, so all of those superstitions, as we would refer to them, just like the one I just mentioned, they came from somewhere. They came because people had that experience. It happened to them over and over and over again throughout the ages. So I would say look at the patterns in your life. You can really get to know yourself really well in there, and that's another layer to noticing the signs. But let's just say for a moment that we're looking at external signs, like the ones that a lot of them I'm talking about in my chapter, which is the first one in the book that outlines basically how you can at a 101 level start to see those signs and symbols in your environment, not just because, oh wow, that's really cool, but because it can help guide you. It can help you make decisions. And that's where the real change starts coming in. And sometimes we need that change from our outer environment. Although, of course, we know, yes, we hear, especially today, we're becoming very more self-aware as a society. And we hear you got to start from the inside. You got to work on the inside. And that's very true. But if you start on the inside saying, I'm going to lose, 20 pounds, but you're still sitting on the couch and you're not doing the outer work, that may not work for you. So the outer part is just as important. And some people start with that outer, the names that keep appearing to you. They're not all coincidence. So I'd say if it speaks to you, if it reminds you, you had a dream about person named Michael, and then all of a sudden that week you've met 5 new Michaels. Okay, that could be a sign. I actually had a lot of Michaels in my life. That's one of my examples. My dad is named Michael, and my name is Michele, which is the female version. But I also had a lot of Michaels step into my life about the time I wrote my first book. My publisher was Michael. My editor was Michael. I had a screenplay writer from Texas contact me through numerous friends named Michael. And with him, there was also a coincidence I knew that I was supposed to let him do this screenplay that he wanted to write of the book. The reason that I was supposed to do that was because the address that he had was actually very similar to the name of my book. My book was called Rain No Evil, and his address was Rainwater Way, and it was in Lancaster, Texas. I was also living in Lancaster in a different state. So just all of these things, they add up, and it does take time to realize that, we can look for and extrapolate different meanings from different things in our lives. But when they help you make decisions, I knew I was supposed to trust him to do this. I liked him. He didn't charge me anything to do it, and he really wanted to get it in screenplay form. He was very interested in the book after he read it. So I was able to, let him do that and work with him on that venture. I actually got married. My second marriage after my first marriage of 22 years had ended. I really loved this man. My second husband, I'd met, we dated for about a year. He proposed, and I really felt good about it. But I kept asking for confirmation. I hadn't expected to fall in love so soon after a 22-year marriage. And we had dated for years before that. So I had been with this man, my first husband, for like 30 years. And I thought, yes, someday, maybe give myself about 5 years, and I'll be ready again. Well, it happened way sooner than that for me. And it was real. It felt real and it felt good. But yet I just kept asking for that confirmation. And some of my confirmation came in strange forms. I would hear a song. I do get messages in songs. Sometimes I wake up to a song or a word, and it's not because I heard it the day before. I may not have heard it for years. So those type of things, especially things that come in the early morning hours when you're first waking and you're in that alpha state, and also when you're drifting off, that's when a lot of those good, I will say intuitive hits, because you can say, well, where do intuitive hits come from? My angels, guides, some people could say God, your ancestors, wherever you feel that that's coming from, I would tune into that because that source is also speaking, that's speaking to you. But it's not just your brain giving you these ideas. You're getting the ideas from a source. So it's tapping into where that source is. But I did end up marrying the I married the second man there, and I had a wonderful marriage. We're still together, and I didn't expect the signs that I got. One of them was the song that I got was it was Bridge Over Troubled Waters, and many of you know that song, Crosby. I can't remember the author or the
Yeah. I can't remember the writer either, but
yeah,
we
I
know
was
the
gonna say
song.
Crosby, Stills and Nash, but
Yes.
um, Simon and Garfunkel. Simon and Garfunkel, and I was hearing the song and I heard it 3 times within like 10 minutes. Okay, when I say hear it, I hear it. Sometimes I actually verbally hear it. Sometimes it's more of like that inner, like it's running through your head hearing. So there's both ways of hearing. There's many ways of hearing. It's finding your way of doing that. But I looked up the words to that song, and the song said the lyrics were "Sail on, silver girl, your dreams are coming true." And I did not realize this, but I looked it up because the town I was moving to was called Galena, and Galena is an ore of silver. So people say, well, that's a coincidence. Okay. But again, when it's over and over again, so there are many other confirmations I had for that decision that I made.
Yes, yes. These coincidences,
Mhm.
synchronicities, are always so beautiful, and usually sometimes we don't notice them right in the moment, but we do notice them when we're looking back, which I believe is something you all touched on in the book. How you can look back and notice how things are all lined up, and I believe you discussed something about our vibrant garden and how we can grow that awareness. Would you like to elaborate a bit more on that concept?
Um, I did use the analogy of a garden, just because I look at, I was referring to basically life, creating that garden of, right now, a lot of people are looking for a garden of peace, wanting peace. So it's what you want and what you want to create. And if you have the intention to create peace or find love or whatever it is that you're looking for in your life. And all of us are looking for something. I'm very happy, but it doesn't mean that I don't have still a desire to change and you know um, create different things in my life. Building a business, helping more people, writing a book, which I've been doing this week at my writer's retreat. So all of those things are ways that we do create a garden. We create that inner garden, and it's just as important, if not more important than the outer garden. But sometimes we need the outer garden to get us kickstarted, and it's okay because that's God's way of guiding us, of seeing those signs in our outer environment, and then you'll start to feel them on the inside. Those inner ways of knowing, like you hear that police officers have gut intuition, or detectives, they just have that gut instinct, or the doctor had a gut instinct to run this certain test on someone. It's not always about their knowledge and that they've gained from books. It's because they know. They just have that inner knowing. And every single person watching this has that. Everyone does have it. It's just, what do you do with it? And are you paying attention to it? Because if you push it away, it's not going to grow. And so you have to trust yourself and learn to trust yourself. And in that process, you'll see that skill gets stronger. And when you're talking to someone and you get that instant, oh, I don't think I want to spend very much time with this person. You don't know why. They don't stink. They're not mean to you right then. There's no outer reason at all to not like this person. But you just think, this is just not for me. This person is just not someone I want to be around. Trust it, because if not, you're going to learn the lesson the hard way 6 months later when they got you fired, or they're yelling in your face and you're in a relationship with them and you're like, oh, That's what I was getting. And that's what you were just talking about. That circling back around to, oh, if I'd have just listened then and saw it, you could save yourself some hard lessons. So that's that inner garden.
Indeed,
Just every day
definitely. And
around
I,
it.
yeah, and I just have to point out that that's a synchronicity for us because my group that I have, my community for moms, it's Kimi Miki is my website, but the group, the community is actually called The Garden. So it's a place where moms grow.
Oh, nice,
So I thought that was so awesome. I'm like, oh, she's talking about the garden.
nice.
Nice. So let's see what else. You guys just have so many wonderful things going on in your stories. I don't even know how to pick out all the juicy details. So Heidi, we haven't had much interaction with you. We'd love to know more about what led you down this process with your son and getting to where you were you already coaching, or did you become a coach after your experience with him, or how does that all work out for you?
Uh, the coaching came much later. I was living the lived experience of being on a journey with someone with severe needs, and it was an absolute detour from my career before in healthcare marketing and philanthropy, and like, oh, I have a kid who really needs a lot of help, a lot of attention, a lot of time. And that was a change of the life script I had written for myself. And I think we all write a script, and especially when you have kids, you write a script of, okay, one day they'll do this, this, and this. And, you project out in school and get married and you'll be a grandmother and you'll, all like whatever it is, like when they're born, you play this out. And then when something happens that is an absolute change and you realize this is a different script. And this is not the movie I signed up for. Wait, no, can I give this back? Like, no, tell my agent no. I don't want this movie. And yet there it is, and you're in it, and then you have a decision to make. Each human being in the movie of their own life, um, makes a decision. Am I going to be the hero of my own movie or the victim of my movie? Which in this journey, who am I? And the decision of identity, I think, is at the heart of everything. And and it's not easy. And that is back to what we've been all talking about, is that inner guidance when hard things are happening and we want to run away and hide and just disappear. And I had many of those moments. Um, and at the same time, there's the inner guidance that is linked to all that says, choose life, move forward, choose life, see the good, see the signs, see the support, see the abundance in front of you. If you get out of your own way, take a breath and say, wait, as Michelle was just saying, wait, what's that in front of me? Is that a message? Is that encouragement? What is that? Oh, I'm not alone in this. In the 3D world, we feel very alone and we don't recognize the help that's there, whether it's a human being or with AI. What's this extraordinary new friend I have? This powerful friend who I can offload things to, or who can guide, who can structure things for me so that I can then be more effective. So, what is in front of me? And this is then back to that inner guidance. We, Nothing I say is new for you. I'm just reminding you of what you already know. We all already know. We already have that guidance, which is always, what is my next step? What's for the highest good right now? And that's actually, as I speak about my journey with Ethan, who has typed I was told when he was 5 years old that he had the mental capacity of a 5-month-old infant. And it was it was shattering. It was absolutely shattering. I cried literally for 2 weeks, day and night. And it shattered what I thought was true. And it turns out it was not true. But when we function through a belief that something is true, it's super important. Is that belief true? And then we start getting signs, and and in the beginning, you're like, that can't be true because I was told by an expert that something is true. And then the inner guidance, though, can be, hmm, did you question that? Is that really true? Is it always true? Is it true right now? Maybe it used to be true and not anymore. Or what is true? What do I decide is true? And then in Ethan's case, when we shifted from, and in this country, the focus with autism is generally the behavior, because there are a lot of the nervous system is very distressed and the person is very dysregulated and does all kinds of unusual things that are symbolic, of their symptoms of a dysregulated nervous system. So people make assumptions that they're intellectually impaired, and some are, but 90% of the time, it's just that their nervous system is very distressed and they have trouble regulating, and who can't relate to that? How many of us get dysregulated and then we can't hear things that people are saying to us, or we shut down, or we lash out, or we say or do something inappropriate? It's just about extreme, but we all as humans do that. But the guidance with Ethan, then we shifted away from the focus on behavior and shifted schools where their motto is presume competence. And it doesn't mean that everyone's a genius. It just means they can do more than you think with the right support. And this school offered alternative communication techniques because they presumed there are thoughts and feelings in there, unlike the other school, which said that there aren't any. These people are barely human, actually, was their thinking. That wouldn't be in writing anywhere, of course, but just what they would say to you. And so this was the horrible burden that we had been functioning under. And then we changed schools and they offered the communication. And the very first week, and we knew Ethan knew how to type because he knew the keyboard. They had taught him that to copy words, which is not creative thinking, but it's copying. So he knew the keyboard. His first week, the teacher called me and said, I wanted to tell you about an exchange I had with Ethan. I'm thinking, exchange? You mean like back and forth? He doesn't do that. He's not capable of that. Well, okay, I don't know what she's telling me. Well, yeah, she said, I said to him, Ethan, you've been here a week. How do you like it? She actually asked him how he felt about something. She presumed competence. And she told me later she wanted to keep it really easy because when the focus is on behavior, as it had been, people are in fight or flight all the time, and anything feels like an attack, including a question that is difficult to answer. And so she's like, wanted it really easy. Whatever he'd say would be fine. Hate it, like it, loud, whatever. The reason she was calling was that the 3 words that Ethan had typed in response to her question, basking in joy. What? What? Things are not as they appear to be. Especially, and Pamela is the neuroscience expert, the brain and the body in people with neurodiversity very often, they're not wired typically. And so the body does not always obey the brain. And often you can't even do the thing you really want to do. And Ethan often says the opposite of what he wants because of this glitch that happens. And then people wonder, Why is he upset? I gave him what he wanted. Because that's not what he wanted. But you wouldn't know that unless you let him communicate in a supported way what he truly wants. And then Ethan went on, and I wrote a book about the book I wrote is You Just Have to Love Me, because that was my first book before working with Moments That Moved Us, because it was about this journey of awareness and consciousness, and things are not as they appear to be, and the inner wisdom that is maybe locked within, waiting to emerge. And then in this book, I talk about my journey with Ethan, who has typed about knowing God and remembering choosing to come here with challenges. Why did he do that? All that. Um, and in this book, I'm further along on the journey, having to tap into inner wisdom because it's not easy, even with him communicating. Oh my goodness, it's a tough journey. And he needs tremendous support in this. And the world is judging him as less than and angry with him for how he looks and behaves and the assumptions they make. And so in my chapter, I talk about, Michelle talked about intuition. I talk about in my chapter a memory that started recurring for me. And it was an incident that happened when I was 9, and we had learned about King Solomon. And King Solomon, in Sunday school, King Solomon, God says, you could have whatever you want. What do you want? And he asks for wisdom. And I remembered as a kid when I heard that story thinking, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. He's asking for wisdom. He knows God's going to like that answer. And sure enough, he manipulated God. God said, great answer. And I'm going to give you everything you wanted. I'm going to give you riches. I'm going to give you whatever you want, anything. And of course, in my life, as life evolved, I realized wisdom is everything. It's when you have the wisdom of the right thing in the right moment with the right person, everything opens for you. And so God didn't just, here's a bonus. It was a natural outgrowth that from wisdom comes everything. Why was I remembering that story at hard times in my life? And that's one of the things that I explore in the chapter of how the memory of that and the realization that each of us has King Solomon within us and the inner wisdom within us when we choose to listen to it. We can each access that and use that remembrance here and now to make an empowered decision to move forward in our lives right now.
Wow, I love all of that, Heidi.
Thank you.
So much beauty in your story, that presumed competence that just allows people to be the best versions of themselves is so important, so vital. I
Everybody, for
hate it when we
everyone, every
discount.
human, everyone.
Yes, yes. So whenever we discount people, we're chopping them off at the knees, and it's not necessary.
Well, and they have
So,
so much to offer. One young man said, he had typed this, they're teaching me lessons. He was 20 years old when he typed this. The little red hen counts to 10. He's like, this is baby stuff. This is boring. And then you wonder why we're upset in math because this is boring stuff. He said, I understand math equations. Like, teach me great stuff. Like, this is boring. And his mom said, well, like what? What do you mean math equations? What do you mean you understand math equations? And this kid types, well, like the math equation that predicts how cancer moves through the body. I was like, don't you think Memorial Sloan Kettering and Dana-Farber and MD Anderson should be having a chat with this young man and let him
exactly.
type his answers?
Yes, yes. A jaw-dropping moment, I'm
It
sure, for
it
everyone
was.
involved. Like, wait, what?
We were all silent. What?
And Heidi, I don't know if you realize I taught special education for
Oh,
25 years. I still do teach online, yes,
oh,
part-time. And so that's my master's degree, and that's where I've spent my entire teaching career. So I've worked with many autistic children, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Some very now I have not had the like what they would say, like you said, nonverbal. I don't. There are some, but I typically had students that were very high functioning. Yes, in my classes. So that's another common thread through this. It seems like our discussion is, the uh, looking at people in society, judging and that. But I do think that part is getting better. I
Yes.
I do. I think that there's a lot more awareness, thankfully for the actual awareness societies, but and the marches and different things that happen, even with autism. That was a huge word. And a lot of people didn't know what it even was. Probably 10, 12 years ago, you'd had people asking that. You would have only heard that like in an educational environment. But now, most people have heard of it and know at least to a degree what it is. They might not be able to identify exactly, but I think that's a positive thing. And I know it doesn't really go with that specific, what I'm saying doesn't go with signs and symbols in our environment, but it is a representation, I think, of how things in the outer world do change as we change on the inner world. And like Heidi's saying, that
Mhm.
that wisdom and and letting go of the belief systems that are our prison bars and what you
Yes.
always thought has to be true. And I grew up believing this, and I was raised in this certain church or this with this certain belief and custom and whatever, and just letting those things go and looking for yourself. And that is actually what happened. That is what happened to me. I grew up Pentecostal. It was very strict. We had to wear dresses, and we weren't allowed to wear makeup. We couldn't cut our hair. We couldn't even swim in a swimming pool with boys. So it was very strict. And then my mom and dad separated and divorced when I was 12, 13 years old. And my dad got custody of us. So we were then able to do that. He had let go of that belief system, probably out of a rebellious and probably hurtful state, but he had let go of it. And I started questioning, oh, I think I can do that. So I would start wearing jeans and fitting in a little bit more with which is what you want to do when you're in high school. But then when I got married to my high school sweetheart, we had children. I ended up having a very crazy, bizarre experience as a result of a prayer. I said a prayer, a very desperate prayer for a change in my life. I was in a verbally abusive situation. So he was a wonderful, caring person in many ways, but the verbal abuse was something I didn't even put that term to it then. It went on for many years before I realized what it was. And I was led to a book in the library that helped me tremendously. It was called The Verbally Abusive Man by Patricia Evans. But again, that sign, like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to get that book. Why am I supposed to get that book? I didn't go there looking for a book on verbal abuse. That wasn't in my vocabulary or on my radar at all.
Mm.
So that was another way that changed my life. That book, and I interviewed her actually on a podcast that I used to do, was, I was able to get in touch with her, and she was a best-selling author and answered her phone for me. Looking back as what we're doing now, that those things were all in place to help me. When I said that prayer, I wanted change in my life. I wanted out of that environment. I didn't know what to do. And at that time, I didn't have that term. I didn't know what was going on. And I just knew that every conversation was frustrating. I always felt like I'd done something wrong. I always thought, what could I do differently? I was looking at me, but I also I didn't know what to do or where to turn. And we started having water spray in our house right after that prayer. Water would spray from nowhere. It shot across the room. We looked for a source. It didn't make any sense. And this for weeks until I finally, again, I was getting that audible. I was and I was on my planning period, and I was again praying, like, what is going on? This is crazy. We were sopping up water everywhere. I was having very intense dreams. I'd started getting visions. I didn't know what was going on. And I knew I wasn't going crazy. I didn't, but by the outer environment, it would have appeared that way. So I heard, I heard God's voice say that there, this was
Michelle,
a
can you,
spirit
if you can hear
in
me,
the
can you turn
house.
off your
And so
video? It
that
might
was
help
the
your
next
sound
step. Oh my gosh, what do I
because
do
you're breaking
now?
up really bad. Hopefully we
Oh,
can hear you better,
sure,
hopefully.
sure. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
And
Yes, good.
is that better? Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So, are you still able to hear me?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, great. So I'm not sure what all you've heard, but that experience changed my life.
Yeah, it sounds like
Absolutely.
a lot of things were going on in there, giving you signs and nudging you towards the direction in order to make the change that you were
Yes,
craving, and you just didn't know what it was exactly. But I love that.
absolutely. And I
I love
wouldn't say
that.
everyone would probably get the answer that I got, because I've had a lot of people say, well,
Yeah,
why would
your
you be
signal's
getting
not strong enough for your picture
why
and
would
your
you get this
sound.
type of answer?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry, we love seeing
Sorry
you,
about
but
that.
we can't hear you
Sorry for
as
this bad
well. So
connection. Yeah. Oh,
that's what happens when you're
no, I'm
traveling. You can
sorry
only
about
do
that.
so much.
I
Yes,
think
yes.
that what Michelle was saying was a wonderful example of that inner wisdom, and her own consciousness was growing, and her own personal growth and expansion was happening, and she was praying, tapping into the all that is. And then it's not a coincidence that she saw the book. The book was there. The book was going to be there. The book was on the shelf. It was probably in Dewey Decimal System order on the shelf. But her higher consciousness zeroed in on it. That's a solution for me. I've asked for support. And then she could see the book title that has been there. If she weren't ready, she wouldn't have noticed that
Hmm.
title, even though it was on the shelf. And I think that that is for all of us. The book is there. The messenger is there. The teacher is there. The resource is there. The abundance is there. The support is there. Are we ready to see it and say, wait, that title is calling me? I'm that's it. That's my next step. And
Yes.
you followed your next
Definitely.
step, read the book. And it's as
Yeah.
simple as that. It wasn't change the world, climb a mountain, do it. No, take the book off the
Yeah,
shelf.
it was the first simple
Yes.
step, but it did lead to me. It led to a huge life change for me.
Yes.
But
Yes. It
more
began.
than that, it was the prayer that I prayed at
Yes.
my house to, and I got an answer, and I got an
Hmm.
answer that was very, you couldn't ignore water spraying across your house. I mean, that's not something you could ignore. We were sopping it up. It was absolutely bizarre, and it went on for weeks before I heard, that there was something there. There was something paranormal going on in the house. So that was my answer. That wouldn't have been necessarily anyone else's answer to to that question. How do I change my life? What's going on? But it was my answer.
Well,
And
It's
water is a
definitely
metaphor for truth.
absolutely, yes, there were a lot of emotions. It represents emotions and
Yes.
other things. But
Yeah.
I'm just thankful for the journey. I'm thankful to be able to share in books like this, that something to help someone else get started on, or maybe just continue where they're at. Maybe they're already seeing some of these things and they want to learn how. I guess that's the teacher in me. I have that huge teacher archetype of. That's why Pamela, when I submitted my chapter, she said, I think this should be like the first chapter, just because it like outlines like some basic things to look for, and how do you look for those signs in your environment without, like you said, Kay, at the beginning, like every little thing is not for you. How do you know what is for you? You know, and weeding through that at first, just notice what you notice is what I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And you will start to notice those things. And then the second step of that would be after you're noticing, okay, what is it what is it telling me? Okay, so I noticed there's, I'm seeing redbirds, all of a sudden, well, look up, what does a redbird symbolize? Look up redbird totem, when you type it in, see what it means, what it's meant to other people. And a lot of times it means that there's news coming, but it also could be that it was your grandmother's favorite bird.
Yeah,
It
so many
doesn't have
different
to be a
things.
universal meaning. It could be something that, your grandmother had redbirds in the backyard and you're wanting a backyard again. You're wanting a house. And it helps you to tune into that knowing within yourself, oh yeah, that's what I want. I want my own backyard with a birdhouse where I can have redbirds in my backyard. It can be something like that. But I took all that from seeing redbirds through the week. Yeah, you do. And it helps
Yeah.
you to get to know what you want out of life and to get it in a subtle way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story that you all have, what do you call it, strung together in this anthology. And I just would love to know, Pamela, I know we're already coming close on an hour here. I can't believe it's gone by so fast. What made you want to gather stories like this in moments that moved us? And what did you hope a reader would feel or do after reading these stories?
Well, in all honesty, I didn't gather them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It ended up that I was talking to somebody who has my grandmother's last name, and I have done family history research for like 25 years. And I was like, we could be related. And so I started talking about some synchronous events that have happened. And one of the things that I talked about was how I met my husband. And and she was just like, oh, that story, you need to meet Alicia. You need to meet Alicia. And Alicia needs your story. And um, so I met with Alicia, and she was putting together this book. And I think she had actually gathered, Heidi, was about 25 authors, I think, that were in the,
Was it that many? I didn't know the
okay, there
number.
was about 25 in the
Wow.
group, in this messenger group. And Alicia had experienced some health issues. She was then trying to raise more money in order to publish the book. And then all of a sudden, Alicia, nobody knew where she was. And a lot of us were like, well, what do we do now? And I had actually just opened up Cowan Communications as a publishing company. And I thought, well, you know, um, what an interesting way of doing some marketing for my new company. And so I know a lot of people were kind of skeptical, what, you're going to do this for free? Yes. Yes, I will do it for free. I'm not going to ask you guys for any more money. I just feel as though that these stories need to be shared, and I didn't even know what the stories were. And yet I have been, as I put together the stories, I actually, in the way of, I just figured I'll put the chapters alphabetically according to the title of the chapter. And it just so happened that the chapter that Michele did totally gave an explanation to help people to gain the discernment of synchronicity. And I didn't plan that. She thinks I did, but I didn't. I just I just went, okay, how do I organize these chapters And it ended up that hers, I said, well, let's do it alphabetically and according to the chapter title. And so, um, and when I actually put the chapters together, I was just like, wow, I I didn't plan that one out. And I in my belief system, I do not believe that that there are any coincidences. I believe that there are um things, that experiences that we are just meant to experience. Some of them are for us to exercise our agency in making that decision of, are we actually going to go down that path? And should we actually go down that path? And sometimes, yes, 6 months or 6 years down the road, you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't think this was the path I should have been on, but it seemed like it was the choice I should have made. But yet when there's, like in my story, um the way I met my husband, I met his car first, and I'm not a car person. And yet a baby blue 1971 Mustang fastback with the white stripe through it, I came across it in the parking lot, and I was just like, I need to meet this guy. I need to meet the
I
guy who
love
owns
that
this car
story.
because he's going to look after me. And what did I do? I quit. I was in university. I quit university and I got a job at Husky so I could meet him. Husky is a gas station. And
Yeah.
the really synchronous thing was that I went in and I bought something, and to this day, I have no idea as to whether or not I actually gave the cashier a 20 or a 10. I just felt there was just this feeling of, that inner guidance. I call it the spirit that just said, give her back the 10 and tell her that she gave you too much. Because the owner was standing right there. And the next thing I know, there was a help wanted sign. And I went in and I applied for the job, and he remembered me, and he remembered my honesty. So so sometimes, like, there's a lot of times where I believe that we actually have, um I've come across the phrase recently, the course of life. And I find it so intriguing that we all have our own individual curriculum, the things that we came here to learn. But that I also find it really interesting that in that course of life, that, I get to learn from Kay's experience, and I get to learn from Heidi's experience, and I get to learn from Kay's experience. And so I don't necessarily have to walk through every experience myself in order to learn those and go through an experience and gain the knowledge that I need to gain by going through the course of life.
I love that, the course of life. Like, that's a totally different way, a new aspect of framing our
Yeah,
existence and our experience. And so,
yeah.
with that in mind, what you were saying about how you can learn from everybody else's experience, what do you hope that readers feel or do differently after reading, your chapter, for instance?
I The main point of my chapter is um is the chapter title, in that everything floats in eternity. And I want for people to recognize that just how eternal they are, to see beyond what this physical experience that we're all enjoying, that there's an eternal aspect of it, that we are eternal beings. That's why it is that when we experience death, it can be just so devastating to us because of the fact that we are eternal. And so death seems so final. And even with the way that the brain is, I don't know how people endured going through the loss of their loved ones before there were pictures. Because when I lost my husband, I was, I went to a therapist, to grief therapist, to help me to deal with it. And he's like, um, yeah, where's the picture of your husband? And I was just like, um, on the dresser. And he's just like, you need to move it to your bedroom, beside your bed, your bedside table. Because my brain had been wired to seeing him first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And so it became that was all of a sudden, well, what happened to that? There was just that much more of a loss. And so I I really want for people to look beyond, you know, what seems to be that physical, because we actually create our lives, and we create it spiritually before we experience things physically. When we put together, I love business, because creating businesses, because it's like you see a problem and you say, okay, what can I create to fix that problem?
Yeah. Yeah. Just really thinking about that whole concept of how our brains are wired to have certain experiences, like you're saying, like seeing your husband first thing in the morning and first thing at night, and a simple sounding solution of putting his picture by the bedside. Like, yeah, it's simple, but it's genius. And
Mm-hmm.
just all of those different experiences, like what is the problem, and then what is the solution, or like
Yeah.
Heidi was saying, remembering, just remembering. A lot of times we think we're coming up with some new concept or some new thing, but we're really just remembering, because
Mm-hmm.
we are eternal. And
That's
that's
right.
just so wild. And speaking of Heidi, I'd love to know more about your chapter as well. What do you hope a reader feels or does differently after reading it?
I hope the reader remembers they're never alone, and they always have themselves and their own inner wisdom that they were born with. It's our birthright. Each human being has this. And it's to trust it. Remember to trust it and not dismiss it, and not think that the only authority and wisdom is outside ourselves. To remember the deepest wisdom is within us, that discernment. And it's not so much objectively right, wrong, good, bad. It's only, is this meant for me right now? Is this for my good right now? Is this for the highest good for all right now? That is always the only question. Always. It's not more complicated than that. It's 0, 1. Is it love or not love? What moves me closer to love of myself and of others? And that is the eternal question, and love is the eternal answer. And love is all there is. Everything we're talking about is commentary. The foundation of reality, the foundation of wisdom, the foundation of what to do next is rooted in our connection and care for ourselves and for each other. And just remembering that we are all one. And that is the ultimate wisdom. And when we remember that and the return to wholeness and the return to connection and the return to appreciation and gratitude for the beyond comprehensible, incredible universe we live in. And AI is a fractal of the magnificence of this universe and a reflection of it. And that everything we see is a reflection of our own greatness and our own wisdom and meaningful as we discern it to be meaningful. It's there for us. The answer is always in front of us. If we are the problem and we are the solution. And when anything that we see in front of us, oh, that's me. And it's there for a reason. I wonder why. In wonder and awe and no judgment of right or wrong. If it's in front of you, it's meant for you. Who will you be now in the decision of what to do next? How can I love best right now and honor who I am and who's in front of me and move from there? That's what I want the reader to remember is their own greatness, their own connection to all that is. Trust your own wisdom. Trust that the other human has their own wisdom and their own journey, and you can be a guide to someone, but you can't be the hero of their journey. That's their road. Stay in your road, let them do their road, and you might want to shout, "Look out for the red light ahead. There's a pothole." Sure, do that. But they still have to, using Pamela's beautiful, they still have to drive their own car. And if we remember that and trust that wisdom, and if it doesn't work, there are no mistakes. There's just learning. And when we remember that, we can choose to live a life of joy and purpose, whatever happens.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Just remembering to go ahead and go through life and enjoy it. And it's about love, it's about peace, it's about
Always.
enjoyment, it's about the experience. And
Yeah.
so many people are working so hard to get it right.
There's no getting it right. It's never
Yeah.
done. It's never finished. It's never right. Get over that. Even
So
when you're gone, it's still going on.
Yep, yep, yep. And there's still some things you left undone, I'm
Whoops.
sure. So, oops. Yeah. So, ladies, we've had such a lovely conversation, and we've gone a little bit over an hour here, but there were so many of you, and I wanted to allow you to have your moments to speak your heart and share your journeys and experience. But I do want to wrap it up with harmony before we cut off. If you have a few more minutes, I know we had to lose Michele. She's at her event, so I'm glad that we had her while we did. But what does harmony mean to you, and why does it matter? If you can give me that answer and, wrap that up. Whichever one of you comes to their conclusion first, go ahead and grab it.
So for me, when I think about harmony, I think about that it's kind of like that synchronicity of, when you're singing a song and you're all just able to hit that perfect note at exactly the right time and have it that, everybody hits it all at exactly the same time. And I think that it's that synchronicity of a multitude of people that all have that same synchronicity all happening at the same time, kind of like that 100 monkey that, all of a sudden the 100th monkey, and then all of a sudden it seems like everybody's doing it. it doesn't take very long once you hit that peak. And yet, what was the synchronicity that took place in order to bring that harmony into being? And I've noticed that there are ways for us to change the course of our lives and bring it more into that harmony.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that is basically that whole, when we really do love and appreciate that, our whole being.
Yes, the whole being part is very important. In order to have your whole being in harmony, is usually the goal that we're working for with the ladies that I work with. And because a lot of times we talk about that work life balance, and it's like balance is kind of unattainable. You're constantly teetering, tottering, adjusting, trying to find balance. So, and Heidi, did you want to chime in on what harmony means to you and why it matters?
Yes, I love that. I love it's a beautiful word. Just the word is harmonic, harmony.
Yeah.
Um, to me, harmony, I've thought about this word, and it's no shocker to you after today's conversation. I view harmony as relationship. It's the interaction of one with the other, each bouncing off of and augmenting and enhancing and enriching and supporting the other strand. And it makes for a complexity of music that you wouldn't have if it were one note or one melody. It's all of it weaving together into this harmonic, magnificent creation of sound. And sound is resonance, vibration, frequency, energy, spirit, all there is. And harmony is this beyond the brain figuring it out, this magnificent beingness. When you're in harmonic sound, you are one with it. And you are part of that. And it's all that is. And the body feels it, the mind feels it, the heart feels it. Every aspect of you aligns in harmony to that tuning fork idea. I am in alignment with this beauty. And it's the coming together in relationship. It would not be the same. If any one of those was not there, it wouldn't be the same. Each one is needed. Each one is loved. Each one has its own role and contributes to the whole community of strands of sound. Um, and the achieving of that, and we feel it when we're in community with each other, and we feel when we're in harmony. And it doesn't mean notes don't go out of whack every so often. And then the community says, come back, come back to harmony, welcome back. And that is the power of a forum like this dedicated to the creation of harmony. Thank you for doing this, Kay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I love that way that you brought it together of the community, like working together in harmony. And yeah, that's lovely. And then my final question, what used to be true for you, but isn't anymore?
Mm.
Whichever one of you comes,
I can
comes
answer
to mind with.
quickly. I can
Uh,
answer quickly. That one is I thought my job growing up from day one, I thought my job, if I love somebody, my job was to fix them. I thought loving and fixing were the same word. They were synonyms for each other. I really did. I no longer believe that. Every experience, whack in the head, it's all shown me, no, no, no. That's the painful false belief. I no longer do that. Doesn't mean I don't lapse, but I no longer believe that my job is to fix everyone who's in front of me. My job, my privilege, my honor is to love the human in front of me and accept them for who they are and look to learn from them because the fact that they're in front of me, I'm meant to learn from them, not
I
fix
love
them.
that.
Not fix them, not my job.
Yes. Yes, yes. Loving and fixing, two separate things. I love that. I love that. And Pamela, did you have one? Something that's not true, that used to be true for you but isn't anymore?
I would say that it's very similar to Heidi. Very similar in that, yeah, I I always thought that I was the one who had to fix everybody's problem.
Right.
You know, they have a problem and you know, it's always easier to fix somebody else, help somebody to to solve their problem. Just like it's easier to do their dishes.
Indeed.
Why is
Indeed.
that?
I
I
don't
don't know. I
know.
don't know.
You're at someone else's house, they've had a party,
That
you help clean
You
up.
help
That's
clean
easy.
up.
You
yes,
just do it. Don't
yes,
even
and
think
it's
twice.
nothing, but yeah, you look at your own dishes and you go, how did those get there? And and yet, I actually have had to come to the realization that by my doing that, by my thinking that and believing that it was actually making me feel like I was important, that
Yes.
they need me because I can fix their problem. And yet,
Yes.
if I solve their problem for them, what do they learn? I get the experience, I get the knowledge, I get the wisdom, but what do they get?
That's
And so I
so important.
realized, you know what? That's actually me being very selfish and prideful. That it was my pride that actually was getting in my way of me loving them and supporting them and encouraging them to pick up that fishing pole and go fish for themselves.
Yeah. They have to fly.
Yep,
Yeah, we can't fly for them.
that's right.
Tried
Exactly.
hard, doesn't work.
Just, well, just like, you get on the airplane and what are we told? Give yourself the oxygen first,
Yes.
you know?
Very true.
And I find it really ironic, maybe synchronicitous, that we cannot share the same oxygen. We breathe, but I can't breathe for you.
Very true. Very true. Wow. This has been such a great conversation. I've loved bits and pieces that are going to stick with me for sure. And the whole conversation has just been very, very valuable. I hope everyone that gets a chance to watch this leaves with some nuggets because there's plenty in here. This has been a whole meal. You ladies have left nothing off the table. I really appreciate you sharing your stories and your experiences. And we're going to make sure that in the show notes there are ways for people to get the book and to get in contact with each of you if they would like to learn more and experience more of all the wonderful goodness that you guys have available. So I really appreciate you for being here today, to the live viewers and to my guests and to the replay viewers. And we will see you guys next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of the Harmony Principle